you on the spot now, because I work fully remote. Yes. Okay, fully remote. Do you? No, I don't. I prefer Korean, so I'll probably ask you Korean, but yes. Okay, so you work fully remote. When do you start working? Ah, your job is sweet. Yeah, yes, I love that. Who wants that kind of job? Me, I do. Slow mornings. Yes.
9 o'clock I'm sleeping and I work with a team that is in Nigeria. So remember when
Okay.
the clock goes back.
Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. So, I do this. So let me ask you. How many hours is your break time?
It's sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes
Okay.
because there are days where it's
Mm-hmm.
there
Yeah.
are days where it's a bit quiet.
Okay.
So the days where it's a bit
I was about to ask you now that do you find yourself just, man, I'm not really in the mood. Let me just keep my laptop there and lie down on the chair and watch TV. But I'm working. I mean, do you feel guilty?
honest though.
Yeah, do you feel guilty when you do that?
No. I'm why I'm not trying to say oh I'm perfect. The thing is, I do what I need to do when I need to do it.
Yes.
And so taking a break, and I've told, I think something I learned from my former Danish boss is like, Emma, the company will continue to function without you.
True.
So put it in your mind. Take a break. Like if you take a break, the 2 hours you take for your break, it's not going to make the company fold. It's not going to make the
Exactly.
company crumble. And
Yeah.
so that had just stuck with me from my HR days. I'm
Yeah.
like, problem no, they finish.
It doesn't. I love that. I like that you're very realistic. Because I do a lot. This week, I'm just like, I'm coming. I'm still working, guys. I'll pop out for just 30 minutes, and I'm there watching Netflix, watching Korean shows. And that's the beauty about remote jobs. So don't be jealous of me if I tell you I'm doing that, because, but the thing is, I think that's the flexibility with being in a remote job, right? But who's hybrid? Like 2 days, you're hybrid? Do you prefer to go into the office, or you like to work from home? Do you steal that 2 hours? So you like to work from home?
Yeah, I have to go like 2 days a week,
Okay.
but I prefer working from home more.
Why? So you can cook some nice meals.
Yeah, I feel it's more of the journey to office, which
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of.
yeah.
So, I prefer working from home at my own pace and
Yeah.
at my own space,
The
basically.
commute, yeah. I wish more companies. I understand the need to go into the office, right? Again, thank God. My manager is supposed to be here, but he's not. So I'm so grateful. Is he here? Jesus, where is he? No, but I will say great things about my company, so I'm never going to lie. But I enjoy the fact that my company is fully remote. I'm not even going to lie. We're fully remote, but we go in when we have to, right? But that commute thing is something that's a bit weird. And I wish and pray that companies can be again, I'm not in the finance team, and if there's anybody in finance here, please, this is someone talking out of wishes, right? I wish that companies can say, if you're coming, I will pay your tea fare, I will pay your hotel. That's what my office does. So if I'm going into London, and I'm saying that because that's what they do. If I go into London, they pay that. And if I'm staying over, they pay my hotel. And I wish all companies actually do that, because that's why you find people will stay in a company for more years than others, because again, you're making it difficult to leave them, right? So I really wish that companies would maybe reduce the hybrid, but that's me. Is that how any other person feels? But you guys like to go into the office? You like to go into the office? You like to go into the office? I'm the only lazy girl, Jesus. Who else likes to go into the office? You have fun when you go into the office? Tell me, what fun do you have?
There's
Like going to the pub?
No, even while in the office. To
Okay.
go out to lunch together. We have amazing team meetings. That's my manager back there.
You
Just
have to,
log
that's
in.
why you have to say
No,
that.
no, not at all.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we work, we believe as a team that
Mhm.
fun is important.
Yeah,
So we prioritize coming in to spend that time
yeah,
together.
I agree.
When you can build that relationship and trust,
I
and then
agree.
you can support
Agree.
each other when you're firefighting.
I
Because
totally
you're
agree.
always firefighting.
Totally.
Yeah?
Now that you said that, I totally agree, right? I think that there is a great benefit in being there's a great benefit there's a great benefit in being together, right? And while I love working from home, I wish that companies pay people's tea fair, especially after COVID. But again, this is just me speaking out of my wishes. Please, if you're in the finance team, I know you're thinking about the budget of your company. So yes, but again, just get people to like be nice to them, right? But yeah. Okay, Toby, are you ready for me? Thank you. Jeez. Please, guys, clap for me. Amazing. I love that. That was the longest icebreaker ever. But I think I kept you guys engaged. Amazing. Thank you guys so much. So if you've got your brochure, the next thing on the agenda is our welcome address from Toby Otokiti. Your bio, are we reading that? Okay, amazing. All right, please give a round of applause to Toby.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So lovely to have us here today. Thank you so much for coming. I know that we could have spent our time doing something else, but thank you so much for prioritizing your time here with us at ProductDive. My name is Tobi Otokiti, and I'm the founder of ProductDive. About 10 years ago, I started my product management journey, and it was a journey filled with imposter syndrome, always unsure of my expertise and if I was doing the right thing. And I don't want to say unfortunately, no, but it was the start of my career, my tech career. And imagine having to work with very experienced senior engineers, because product management was my second job, but it was 1 year into my career, and I started off as a web developer. And so, while speaking to software engineers, they will say so many things, and I'll be so confused. All right, and it was that pain that birthed ProductDive. I would speak to a couple of other product managers, my manager, always checking with them. I would do lots of, checking online, checking Google, trying to read up as much as I could. Sometimes I'm confused. Sometimes, I, in a way, have like an headway. But it was just filled with its ups and downs. And I decided to start the community of practicing product managers just so that we could gather on a monthly basis, and the session was filled with rants. Everybody would come, complain how it's either the strategy is not clear or there were many changes in the organization. And we would invite product leaders to, hi Funta. We would invite product leaders to our meetups, and they would come share, they would always tell us that product cultures are different everywhere. Okay, how product is run in an organization is different from how it's run in another organization. And if you're going to be taking anything, it should be contextual. If anybody was going to give you an advice, you needed to provide context first so that they know how best to help you. So I'm a big fan of sharing context with people just so that the information or wisdom it is that they share with me suits my need. Okay. And so from there, we had like this monthly meetups. We started September 2019. ProductDive will be 5 this year. Can I get a round of applause from there? Yeah, we've been in this industry now for quite a while. And, you know, yeah, and then we had these monthly meetups. We had, and then in these monthly meetups, people will say, oh, yes, they had a great time. It was 1 hour. And then they will say, can we deepen our expertise? We would love to learn more. And so October of that year, we kicked off with our first product management training. And this was to solve the need of the community. September 2019, this was our first meetup. Yes, and we started in Nigeria. So this was our very first ProductDive meetup, September 2019. Can we please go to the next slide? And then, yes, like I said, November 2019, the ProductDive program was birthed. And then this was now like a paid training because we had to bring in expert instructors and then practicing product managers in the industry. And then this is the first cohort, November 2019, learning together, learning how we can build products more confidently. And that's me there. Our first cohort teaching the product life cycle from ideation. So I just want to share with us, like the journey and how we got to where we are today. And so we had, and this 2020 was the COVID year. Okay, one thing that has really helped us to grow in leaps and bounds has just been the art of wanting to support one another. Okay, product managers need support. Just like I said, because of the pains that I went through and the pains that other product managers go to today, it just felt like we needed that safe space, all right, to grow. And so this was January 2019. Early 2021, COVID hit. That was late, right? Who remembers? I'm sure everybody here remembers. But that did not stop us from still gathering, which is again why we are here today. And so we invited speakers, that's Shreyas. Anybody know Shreyas, does she? The product leader, ex-product leader, Stripe. We invited VP of Netflix as well. And, we had lots of virtual sessions that year. And then afterwards, 2022, we came back again. So we always love the physical interaction because it's more, you can always share your art and you're not scared. And I think what we also loved the most was that, one thing that was very common with the product managers that we had spoken to was that even when they were blocked at work, they did not really like to speak to their managers about that because they did think it was going to impact their performance appraisal. So, your manager tells you to carry out a task, and it's like you're going back. You don't know what to do. It's almost like, so why are we paying you? Does anybody ever experience that? So you rather speak to somebody outside of your organization, right, who would not, has no impact in your performance appraisal and would not judge you. And so 2022, we came together again in Nigeria with over 600 people joining in person. And then we decided to have, and so all of these were meetups. So 2023 was where we now had like our first major conference where we had product leaders from Netherlands, from Director of Products, Ebi Atawodi. We're like, okay, now let's deepen the experience now. And deepening the experience was let's understand the market nuances. All right, let's also learn from, and let's continue that learning process. 2023, and then now 2024. So we had our first product conference in the UK this year, March 2024. If you were there, please can you wave? Ooh, that's amazing. Wow, thank you so much for coming. This is your second time. And I see a lot of first-timers here too. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming. And so, of course, this is the second edition of our UK conference. So that's like our journey so far. I think it was May, we also kicked off a community in Germany, in Berlin. So ProductDive has now grown from Nigeria to UK and then Berlin, and even if not just Nigeria, even in Ghana as well, we have like a community there. So it's like in less than 6 months, we've actually grown to about 8 cities. Yeah, because now we're in Kenya, we're in Ghana, we're in the UK, we're in Berlin, Germany. We are in, and of course, our next conference this year is in Canada, North America. Can I hear a round of applause? Yeah. So this year, for us, our product dive is really just breaking limits and see how we can include, especially Africans, how we can be on the global, play on the global stage without having to think that there is any bias, all right? But people appreciate the value and the relevance it is that we bring to the table, all right? And so our mission at Product Dive is to help product people, including Africans. Now, this is not just Africans, including everybody, okay? Build products more confidently and to thrive globally. So it doesn't matter if it's your first experience building products. We want you, that if you're in a place of work, we want you to go with that confidence that you know what it is that you're doing. And we know how confidence can really impact how people perceive you. Even though you're smart and you're not confident, nobody would want to listen to you, true or false. And so, however, knowledge, the understanding that you have, or the knowledge that you have, is also what helps you to be confident, right? So even when you don't know so much and you are confident, eventually people would know that it's not the real deal. So at Product Dive, our work is really to help you build products more confidently. And confidently also means being able to collaborate with your stakeholders more confidently, being able to craft and draft your product strategy documents and drive the execution of that product strategy document. Okay, and so our Product Dive, we help aspiring and established product management professionals thrive and grow, accelerate their career in product management. Just like I said, 10 years ago was when I started my journey, and I would say that I've worked with 3 unicorn tech companies. I started at InterSwitch, helping to manage a Verve. I many of us know about Verve cards. So think of Verve as MasterCard, and we had over 50 million active users. At that time, I was managing a portfolio of about 7 products, a dispute, settlement, and reconciliation platform that all banks in Nigeria use today. This is how wallet. And it was just, imagine just having to manage all of that. I'm grateful for that opportunity and for the experience. From Flutterwave, I moved to Andela, and engineering as a service company, helping to build an AI-powered talent matching product that helps match engineers to organizations who needed to extend their teams with talented engineers. And then at Flutterwave, leading growth. I know we have the Flutterwave team here, Send Up. That's a remittance product, but I'm sure they will come speak to it later. All right, helping to growing and scaling their products, okay? And so I'm happy to share all of my experiences with us, because it's in the sharing of our experiences how we grow, and how you also know that you're not alone in that journey. And of course, like, my journey has not been without its ups and downs, but I'm here. Even this morning, I know, I know what my morning went like, but everybody sees all the glows. But trust me, I've cried this morning, But it's always, we always come back looking strong because you have community to lean on. I'm a very strong advocate of community and a support system. And so if you really need that support system to build your product management career, please join the Product Dive community, and we will be there to help, support you, mention your names in rooms, okay, connect to your organization. So at Product Dive, beyond our community, we offer trainings, we help with your CV reviews, we actually help to redraft your CVs, we help your LinkedIn optimization. We provide about 4 programs. If you want to pivot into product management, we have a program for that. You can speak to anybody. If you're a practicing product manager as well, you want to sharpen your skill, we have a program called the Product Manager Blueprint Program. If you're a product manager as well who wants to scale the product, so you have an existing product, you found product market fit, we want to scale to millions of users across different nations, okay, we have a growth product management program for that. And then we have a technical product management program for anyone who is in the technical side of things. So your products are more developer facing, meaning that developers are your customers, and you are building more of like an API product, okay? And yeah, so we have all of those products. Remember that our goal again is to empower you so that you can become confident and you can become a person of value. And anywhere it is that you are, you can lift with your shoulders high, your head lifted up, you are not having to dodge, no, like you are sure of whatever it is that you are saying, and people can trust your guidance. So with product management, we all say it's influential leadership, and product management is a role that is driven by trust. And so I welcome us, once again to today's session. I know that some of us will be making new connections here, and I need us to come into this session with an expectation, okay? Some of you will be making connections in this room that will get you, will help you get maybe like the next thing in your product management journey. Some of us will be speaking to our speakers as well, who are very experienced. Hello, I see you all. And that's, hi, Lucas. Yeah, Lucas Compton Paddle hosted our community some few months ago. They provided like everything, the space, the food, the drinks, and we paid nothing. Please, can we give Lucas a round of applause? Yeah, thank you. Like, we really appreciate it when companies support us. 2 months ago, Microsoft hosted ProductDive community. 3 months ago, I think it was in March, at the end of March, right? We had a community meetup in Meta. Yeah, and it was really fantastic. So if you're here, a professional, tell yourself, I'm staring at you. And you have like an open space, available space, we'll be happy that you get to host our ProductDive community. And so that'll be all for me. Thank you so much, everyone. I really do hope that you have a great time here. And please do not be shy. Introduce yourself, connect with everybody, and I do hope that you get the most out of today's conference. Thank you.
Amazing. Yes, I work with Paddle, guys. Do you know that company I said they pay my hotel? Yes. Okay, amazing. So we are going into our first opening keynote, and that will be by Millie Za. I'm going to be reading her bio while she comes up. She will be talking to us on the journey of a product manager from idea to market. So when Toyosi was telling us all of the wonderful things that a product manager does, Millie will be talking to us about that. She's the head of product at Dozen Group. Amazing. So a little bit about Millie. Having founded and scaled a business to 5 million users spanning 8 countries, Millie possesses a deep understanding of driving innovation and product growth. At Dozen, Millie leverages this wealth of experience to spearhead strategic initiatives that propel the company forward in the competitive landscape of digital sports streaming. So put your hands together as we welcome Millie. Thank you.
I think I'll be probably. Thank you. I think I've got some slides as well. Oh, perfect. Thank you everyone for having me today. I think it's awesome that everyone has come out on a Saturday, and particularly and everyone is locked in and engaged and wanting to kind of develop in their careers and connect. I love the commitment to come out and do that. I'm really excited to be here and speak. Just a little bit about myself. I'm head of product at DAZN, often referred to as DAZN. We are the world-leading sports streaming service. Our offering in the UK is predominantly around the boxing side of things. So if you watch your AJ fights or your Canelo or your Garcia fights, that should be on our platform. I lead our growth markets, which include, predominantly, like I said, our boxing offering. A little bit about me and how I got into product. Back at university, I started an ed tech company from my dorm room. Me and my co-founder, we kind of like I said, started it in our dorm rooms. I'm dyslexic. My co-founder wasn't a typical kind of troll for a textbook and kind of learn type person. So we thought we needed an alternative way to learn and study and prep for our exams. We built a really terrible app outside of our university dorm room. We launched it to our peers. It was terrible design, really buggy, really hard to use, but we saw that people were actually using it and kind of moving through those bugs, so we realized that we had something. Out of uni, we kind of went and did that full time, went and did a few rounds of investment, kind of grew the business to around 5 million users, launched it globally. And when I first started the business, I was kind of mainly focused on the marketing side of things and the fundraising, and very quickly saw that the growth of the product and the business itself didn't necessarily come from all of my amazing marketing ideas, but from the product itself. And every time we kind of launched a new feature, and every time we upgraded the UX, and every time we launched a new piece of content, I realized very quickly that's where our growth was coming from. That was my real first experience of product-led growth, and that's kind of when I decided to pivot what my focus was and move away from my terrible marketing into the more product side of things. And ever since then, I've kind of never looked back. I think someone mentioned it before, just the ability to kind of find problems and solve those problems, not only for a business, but for customers. I just find that really exciting. And yeah, I have building products where I know that whether it's kind of one user is getting some value out of it, whether it's hundreds of thousands of users, such as DAZN, I think that's a great thing that I can provide for people. Today, I'm going to walk through a little bit about what it is to be a product manager, and that varies from company to company. And then also that journey from kind of ideation into actually getting stuff into the market. I'm going to touch on some of the things that I feel make a good product manager, or some of the things that we should embody. I know sometimes a lot of my friends and family ask me what exactly is a product manager, and I find they're a really hard question to answer. So I like to kind of refer to some of these things. For me, essentially, a product manager is being a kind of mini business owner of whether it's a feature or a theme. And some of those things include kind of showing ways to really improve and evolve a product or a business, being really creative, engaging in experiments, taking risks particularly, innovating, finding different ways to innovate, whether that's kind of working really closely with our colleagues or doing a bit of market research, gathering some customer feedback. I think finding new ways to create and capture value is always at the back of my mind when I'm thinking about building roadmaps or what it is I want to build. Trying to differentiate between other businesses in the market as well. For at DAZN, we aren't necessarily the only platform that stream boxing fights. You can go to Sky or TNT, but how are we doing that experience differently? We don't just want to be the company where you come and watch a fight. We want to build tech around that experience. Can you come on board and kind of see the stats around the fight? Can you engage with other users on the platform whilst you're watching the fight as well? Identifying market opportunities. So again, really understanding my market, what's happened in the past in my market, where we're at the moment, what's coming in the future. So for me, I need to be really locked in on what's happening in the streaming world. What are Netflix doing next? How are people viewing and streaming TV? How are people moving away from kind of the channels 1 to 5, and are they moving more to the YouTube world? All of those things I need to be very aware of. Identifying, like I said, market trends. Where's the market going? Where's the market been? Being an anchor for my team, I find this really important. I feel like my team, whether it's the UX or the engineers or my direct team, I kind of need to always be the anchor for them and have the answers. Whether I have the answers or not, it's my job to kind of go and find those things out. Collaborating really closely with those teams and making sure that I can communicate that vision to them. And also learning and documenting. I think this is something that's kind of massively missed sometimes, is it isn't just about us delivering value for businesses, but how can they kind of deliver value for us, and making sure that I'm always learning as I'm going and documenting these learnings as well for other teams. Next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, and then like I said, I feel like us as product managers, I feel like we are the orchestrators and the anchors to the mission of the business. It's our job to kind of understand what our business is trying to achieve and then help the business do that via the product. And doing this, I feel like it's really important that we always understand why we're doing something and who we're doing it for. A lot of the time, I feel like this message of why we're doing something should come from the business, but it doesn't. Sometimes our businesses aren't great at communicating why we're trying to achieve certain things. An example, at DAZN, we're trying to be the world's leading sports streaming service. And to do this, we've kind of realized that we know that we need to get people on the platform at least 10 times a month, viewing around 7 hours of content. And again, that's not necessarily something that's come from myself, but it's something that's been communicated down from the business. And I would just say, if your business isn't great at communicating what their North Star is, what they're trying to achieve, go and kind of fish that out of them. Like, it's their responsibility to provide that, and don't be afraid to kind of ask your manager or ask senior leadership, what is it we're actually trying to achieve as a business? And then everything I do kind of comes off of that North Star. So like I said, at DAZN, it's having people on the platform at least 10 times a month, viewing around 7 hours of content, and that's how we get the most out of our users. So moving into those kind of 5 whys and the who. Now that I've kind of understood what it is that the business is trying to achieve, before I even think about, sorry, back one slide. Before I even think about what we're trying to build or what's on the roadmap, I need to understand certain things. So if I need to understand the problem statement, and I do this with the 5 whys. So I think we established at DAZN that if a customer comes on the platform, if they don't engage in any content within the first 3 days, they're going to churn within a week. So normally customers will stay with us for 6 months, but those who do not engage with any content in the first 3 days, they churn. That's a really big problem for us. It was around 25% of our customers, and that's a really big chunk. We spend a lot of money acquiring customers, and we want to keep them on board. So now we have this problem statement. Before I go and build anything or kind of ask my team to build roadmaps, I really need to understand these 5 whys. Why are users dropping off in the first 3 days? And like I said, the first answer to that is that they're not actually engaging with any content in those first 3 days. Second layer is, why are they dropping off? Why are they not engaging with any content in the first 3 days? And then I think we kind of got to the answer that maybe the content that they're seeing just isn't as of interest to them, because they've signed up, we know they like the platform, but maybe what they're seeing just isn't interesting. Why are they not finding that? The third why is that, why are they not finding it interesting? Maybe we're just not presenting them with the content that they want to engage in, that they thought that they were going to see when they joined the platform. And then the fourth side of things, why are they not seeing the content that they want to see? They've signed up, they know that they're interested in the platform. Why are we not presenting them with what they were expecting? And then that kind of got me to the point where I think our algorithm is just not doing what it's supposed to do. We're not personalizing the experience. Everybody that lands on the platform is seeing the same thing, but not everyone who's come to the platform wants the same thing. Then that gets us to the fifth one. How can we better recommend content for our customers? And there we go. We kind of figure out this is what we need to build a roadmap based off of. To solve this problem of people dropping off, we need to better present customers with the content that's more tailored to them. So we need to build a roadmap on personalization when customers are coming to the platform, first of all. And following this 5 whys not only holds myself accountable for why we're doing something, it holds my stakeholders accountable. As product managers, we get a lot of the time marketing coming to us and saying, I need you to build this, or customer service saying, I need you to build this. And this is an exercise I always do with those teams. If you can answer these 5 whys, it prevents us from solutionizing. Instead, it helps us identify what the problem is, and then we can start the solutionizing stage. It simplifies that process as well. It's very quick and easy to do. We can kind of get to the root of the problem without having to go through too much data, take too much time, speak to too many customers, and really find that balance between let's really find the root cause, and then we can start digging a little bit deeper into that. So yeah, those 5 whys for me are extremely important and something that I always try to follow. And then on the who side of things, like who are these customers that are experiencing these problems? Are those customers coming from marketing campaigns where they've been promised something that they haven't actually received? Are they saying, come to the platform and see all this information about AJ, but they're landing and they're not seeing anything about AJ? This is when we need to start communicating with the marketing teams. How are you communicating with partners, with users? How are we bringing them to the platform? We need to have this full view of the end-to-end journey. So understanding who are the customers that are having these problems, why are they having these problems? These are the 2 things I like to answer before we even kind of get into that ideation stage. Next slide, please. Yeah, so now we're kind of thinking about how do we know what the problem is, let's go from the idea and let's actually get it to the market. At the top of the funnel, I like to start with a bit of blue sky thinking. It's something that I feel like we don't get to do enough as product managers. We're always kind of bogged down with, I've got this presentation due tomorrow, I need to kind of get back to this person via email, I need to get this thing launched, I need to check the data for this. But sometimes it's just so important to get outside of our heads and actually start to do some blue sky thinking. And this is where we're thinking without limits, thinking about what capacity we might have, thinking about the team won't be able to build this. Let's just get away from all of that. Let's think about what we want the product to look like in 5 years' time. How do we want our users to feel? And again, it's really hard to do this on a day-to-day when we're kind of bogged down with our normal Monday to Friday kind of role. There's a couple of ways that I like to kind of get myself and my team into this blue sky thinking mindset. First of all, it's just having a bit of fun with product management. I like to lead workshops where I tell everybody to come. We'll start at 9 in the morning, and you will not look at any emails or Teams or Slack messages. Just come to the workshop with no expectations, and we're going to start thinking about what the problems are and what things we would like to do to solve those problems. I want you to think about problems as if you had a magic wand. If you could build something that didn't even exist yet, if you could build something that doesn't even make sense, let's still stick it on there, and then we can kind of work back from there. Taking time away from your desk always helps with a bit of blue sky thinking. Sometimes, again, like it feels like we need to really get back to that email instantly or get back to that Teams message. Take a half an hour walk where you just take your notepad and your pen and you can just get outside of that day-to-day headspace. Be a user as well. Use your product. When you use your product, it helps you identify problems and frustrations you're having. And then sometimes some of my best ideas have come when I'm just at home flicking through the product that I'm building myself. And then diversify your learning. Try to think about, where are my customers, where are they also using products? So for example, at DAZN, we do a lot of influencer boxing with like KSI and Jake Paul. I don't necessarily know a lot about them, but I'm building products for their customers. So I know that I need to be on platforms that their customers are on. So maybe I need to sign up to Twitch, use Twitch a little bit. What's keeping these types of customers on Twitch? And then that, again, takes me out of my day-to-day and starts me thinking slightly bigger about who the user is, what the experience is that they want to have. And this is when you kind of have these list of ideas and we can start to kind of scale them down a little bit. Next slide, please. And this is when we can kind of take some of those ideas and actually do a little bit of validation on them and a little bit of market research. So you've got your kind of list of ideas, and we need to make sure that we can get to the point where we've got a little bit of proof of concept before we actually even take things to engineers, before we take things to the UX team. I think as product managers, it's our responsibility to make sure that we're not wasting our team's time by taking things to them that we don't know are going to work, or we don't know that our users even want. Before I do any form of market research or validation, I always define what it is I want to get out of it. Again, just always going back to that why. Why are we speaking to customers? Why are we doing market research? And in this instance, when we kind of wanted to solve that problem between customers churning in that first week, for me, it was I really wanted to understand the goal that a customer had when they first landed on the product. So every question or every conversation I had, without kind of steering the conversation too much, I always knew that was what I was trying to get out of it. I really wanted to understand what's the goal that a customer wants to get out of landing on our platform. Same as when I land on Netflix. My goal on Netflix is I need Netflix to suggest something to me. I don't want to spend hours browsing around. I want you to know what I want to watch, and I can start watching it straight away. Very similar for us. And then I typically do my kind of market research validation in two ways. Like I said, the first one is that kind of customer discovery. Are we sending surveys to our customers? Are we interviewing our customers face to face? I think interviews are a great way to do it because it becomes very conversational and you can pull things out from them instead of it kind of being a survey where they're restricted to answering particular questions. And then another way I love to do this, and sometimes companies don't have this set up, but it's for us to take that initiative. Bring some customers in the office, kind of get everybody in the room and get them just using their product without any direction. For us, it's very lucky. A lot of our product is on the TV screen. We sit customers down in a room, give them a remote control, and watch them actually use the product and take notes. Because then we can't intervene. We just get to watch their experience and observe and take nuances from the way they're using the product. Are they getting frustrated? Are they smiling? Are they laughing? Are they happy? Are they relaxed? And these types of things really give you insight into that a customer maybe can't give you verbally. And make sure that you're targeting the right customers for these types of things as well. I think problems that I've had in the past, we get kind of lots of customer feedback from disgruntled customers because they're the ones that are more eager to give feedback. That's fantastic, but we also need to get customer feedback from customers that are happy as well, because then you have a bit more of a holistic insight on things. And like I said, asking non-leading questions, like asking the customer, why are you frustrated right now? What's frustrating you? I tend to not ask customers, what do you want? Again, that's jumping straight to the solution. I like to try and identify the problem. And then on the other side of things, going back to market research and validation is competitor analysis. I mentioned be a user for your own product. Use your own products as often as you can, but use other people's products as well. What makes you, again, ask yourself those questions that you ask users. What makes you happy? When you sign into your Gmail account, do you ever feel frustrated? If not, why? If because they have a very seamless sign-in experience. Does your product have the same type of thing? What makes you feel relaxed and happy when you're using other people's products? What excites you about other people's products? And this kind of two-folded market research is like kind of understanding your users, understanding the market, and understanding what others are doing really helps you kind of get to that proof of concept. Now that you've kind of got to that proof of concept and you've presented some of these new features to customers and you've validated it against what's currently in the market, this is when you can start taking things to your teams and your stakeholders to get buy-in. It's extremely important that before we start building anything, you can get buy-in from your stakeholders because they're going to be your biggest champions. Are UX on your side? Do they understand your vision and what you're trying to achieve for the customer? Is the marketing team, are they on your side? Because they're essentially going to kind of help bring customers to these features. Are the customer service team on board? Because if someone's using these features, are the customer service going to be able to support them if customers are having problems or they have any questions? So once you've got your you've got your idea, you've got your proof of concept and you validated it, it's about getting that story together and getting your stakeholders on board so we can move into the next phase. Next slide, please. Yeah, next phase for me is when we kind of lean more on some of our other stakeholders. Like I'm not sure, some companies I've worked at have delivery managers, they have kind of Jira managers, they have other teams that will really support you with the kind of product development side of things. For me, the ideation and validation is where we really need to shine and where we really need to get that story together. But now we kind of know why we're doing something and what we're doing. We kind of need to move into that product development stage of things. And this is where we need to be really clear on what we're doing and communicate that really clearly to all of our different stakeholders. Like I said, whether that's kind of our direct ones, which are kind of the UX and the engineering teams, but also our wider stakeholders. Some of these things, again, like I don't want to kind of dive too deep into these. You can spend hours on some of these things, but gathering and prioritizing those requirements. For us at DAZN, sometimes we're very limited on time. For example, we've got a fight coming up or we've got Champions League final. We need to launch features really quickly ahead of that, so we don't necessarily always have the time to build the feature out as fully fledged as we want. So I need to prioritize what some of those features are or what some of those things on the roadmap look like. And then and then kind of really communicating that back to teams. And there's a couple of different methodologies I do to use this, whether it's using the RICE framework, where we're kind of establishing which features will have the biggest reach, which ones will have the biggest impact on our customers, and those types of things. And then I use Moscow methodology as well. I'm happy to kind of walk through any of these slightly later on. And these are really fantastic tools for helping us prioritize some of these things that we've validated. And then managing that development process. Are you being really meticulous and clear to your engineers about what the backlog looks like? What needs to kind of go through first? What testing is going to look like? Are you really clear on every single use case and user story? Again, just really communicating. Our job during this kind of product development stage is being super clear on what we need our teams to do and then continuously kind of validating that as well. Stakeholder communication, something I'm not always fantastic at. I just want to get the work done. But I feel like stakeholder communication really mitigates any risks. If there's any changes from the top, I need to be aware of that so I can help navigate that with the teams, making sure all of our stakeholders are happy with what we're developing, and again, making sure that I'm aware of any changes that might take place. And then launch preparation. I feel like this sometimes gets forgotten about. Are we in a place to, how are we going to inform our customers of this new feature? Do we have a way of onboarding them to these new features? And sometimes we just launch features. I think Spotify is a great example. I discover features every single day that I wish I knew about months ago because they don't have a way of communicating, hey, we're launching this new feature, check it out. And I think it's something that we miss sometimes, like how are we informing our customers that we've launched these new features that are going to help them stay on the platform and help them have a better experience. And also I just want to say it's really important to kind of be accountable for that end-to-end experience. Do you know what the marketing side is going to look like? And do you know what it's going to look like at the end when it comes to the data side of things? Have you engaged with the data teams? Have you got your data dashboard set up? Do you have a complete full view of that end-to-end experience? And then I think what's also important, also really important is to make sure that your stakeholders have a really clear view of where you are in the development process and where you are on the data that you want to track. And again, because it's really important to also get their input on those things as well. Next slide, please. And then, yeah, launching and beyond, I think it's, again, like sometimes when we work in really fast-paced environments, we kind of get things out the door and it's like, what's next? But this part for me, kind of the launching and the beyond is just as important. All of those things that we've thought about from the beginning of the journey right until the end, we need to continuously reassess those. Let's go back and speak to some of those users. Have we solved the problem that they were having? Let's go back and look at that why from the beginning. Have we solved that problem? Are people churning less? And if we're moving the needle by a little bit, fantastic. If we're moving it by a lot, then we're doing the right thing. But we need to continuously kind of iterate on our mission, making sure that, yes, we've launched this feature. Let's understand how well it's performing or how well it might not be performing. Let's make sure that we're not impacting anywhere else in the business. So we might have launched this fantastic feature that promotes our content, more personalized content to customers. But is it impacting the customers that were already using the platform and now they're seeing content that they don't particularly like? I think it's finding that balance and continuously going back and keeping those communication loops open with stakeholders and with customers. Next slide, please. Now we've kind of walked through the ideation, the planning and the development side of things. There's some challenges that normally arise during these processes that I try to keep an eye out on. I keep reiterating the importance of the why, making sure that I'm always focused on why we're trying to do these things. It's very easy to meander and navigate during the ideation or the development process. And then sometimes you get to the end, you're like, this isn't what we set out to do, and it's not really moving the needle. That's why it's so important to just stay locked in on that mission. And then again, something I'm going to reiterate again, which is just so important, is those really strong feedback loops, making sure the communication is staying open. A lot of our job is project management, and that is also communication management, making sure that everybody is aware and making sure we've got a good cadence of stand-ups and retrospectives and email chains that we're sending out. Be agile and be adaptable with some of these things. That's being able to kind of strategically pivot. Don't just change direction because somebody's come in and said, this isn't a good idea, we don't like this. But being able to, if the data is telling you something has changed or something's not working, it's okay to pivot. If something somewhere else in the business has changed, it's also okay to kind of pivot with those things within reason, but always going back to that why, and it will kind of help you understand why we're pivoting. I think trying to stay strong and wrong is really detrimental. I've launched features before where I know I should have pivoted, and I've launched features and it's just gone terribly wrong. And also ask for feedback on how you are performing as a product manager. I think it's something we're not sometimes always encouraged to do in companies, but there's multiple ways that we can do this with retrospectives, with going directly to, I try to go directly to some of my stakeholders and say, how did I handle this situation? How do you think I could have done this slightly better? How could I have been clearer on communicating what we were trying to do? So I think these 4 things are some challenges that I've faced and my team faced, and I try to think about them the whole way through. Am I keeping my eye on the mission? Am I communicating properly? Am I aligning strategically to what we're trying to do and pivoting if necessary? And then how am I learning as a product manager as well? Next slide, please. So just some key takeaways from this. I think the blue sky thinking is extremely important for me. I think as product managers, our main role is to have the vision and be really clear on what it is we want to achieve and be able to innovate and not just be feature factories. And I think sometimes we just need to get out of our day-to-day and kind of explore where our minds take us and what it is we really want to achieve for our users and for our business. And blue sky thinking is such a great way to do that. And I think it's really important, again, that we're the anchor for our team and for our stakeholders. We need to kind of make sure that everybody's drilled down on what our mission is and what we're trying to achieve and why we're doing it, and kind of stay strong to that. And also learning, iterating, and kind of leading by example as well. How are we helping our teams learn? How are we learning as individuals? And how are we kind of leading by example with some of those things as well? Yeah, so that's it from me. It's a little bit around what I feel like a kind of our role as product managers in that ideation to getting things to market process. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Millie. So we're going to take questions. We've got about 10 minutes, thereabout. I just realized that we've got like an online audience as well. So we're going to take maybe 2 or 3 questions from the stage here, and then maybe 1 question or 2 questions from the online audience. So if we could get the questions ready. So if anybody has a question, could you raise your hand and I'll come to you. Okay.
Thank you, Millie, for your presentation. It was really insightful. One of the things you touched on, which is very important, is, stepping away from being a feature factory.
Mm-hmm.
The question I wanted to ask you there, how do you deal with the stakeholder who says, we need to build this, I want you to build this, but you as the PM know, we cannot build this now, or we don't need to build this now. How do you really find that balance? Because sometimes you're just going to have to go and build that feature even if you don't want to build it.
Yeah, I think there's a delicate balance to it. Because there's been times where I've been constantly pushing back, and that's just not productive. Particularly at DAZN, we work really closely with the marketing team, and they have all of these fantastic ideas, and I think those ideas really serve their small portion, but they come to me with solutions and not ideas, and that's when I kind of go back. I very gently go back to that 5 why. I don't want to feel like I'm attacking anyone and saying, why do you want to do this and why? But I always try to say, okay, let me make sure that I can build the best thing for you and what you're trying to achieve. Not that your ideas aren't great, but let's make sure that take a step back, and maybe we can find, if we understand what the problem is, I can find a solution that maybe solves 5 of your problems instead of us kind of, and then maybe I could do it slightly quicker for you as well. It's always that negotiation, making it sound like I'm trying to, which I am, I'm trying to help them as much as I can. I get a lot of solutions, so yeah, let me understand what's the problem that you're trying to solve. And a lot of the time, sometimes they don't know the answer. And then that's when I kind of go back to, okay, so what's some of the data that we have to say? So I'm trying to think of a recent example. Our CRM team have kind of asked us to build a very specific page where they can send all their marketing comms to that particular page. But for me, I'm like, we have hundreds of pages on our website which promote the exact same content. And what's the problem you're trying to solve? So they're saying our CRM's not necessarily converting enough. Okay, so let's take a step back. Let me understand all the journeys in that CRM purchase journey. And actually, the drop-off is actually much higher in that journey. And the drop-off isn't where they're landing on the page. Maybe we can fix this here, and this, in a much quicker time, will have a lot more impact than the thing that you're trying to fix here. And then we will address that thing after. So it's around really understanding their problem, making sure that they understand the problem they're trying to solve, making sure I'm not dismissing what they want to build, and then caveating that with, actually, we might be able to provide more value for you in another, if we find another solution. So it's those 3 things, but you're 100% right. Sometimes I do just need to build what they're asking me to build. My ideas are not always the best, and they have a very experienced view on their part of their world. They know way more than me on the CRM side of things. But yeah, I always go back to that 5 whys. Why is this an error? Like, why is this a problem here? Why do you think customers are kind of dropping off? Why do you think the journey's too hard for them? Like those types of things. So yeah, trying to really understand a problem statement, but having that balance between sometimes we just have to deliver what they're asking us to deliver.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Insightful session. So I would like to really know how you practically solve the problem of letting the users see what they want to see in the first few days of joining. Did you do any personalized onboarding? Did you do in-app messages? I really want to know how you solve the problem of getting them to see what is speaking to them within the first few days of joining the app.
Yeah, in this instance, it was like twofold. So making sure that what they're landing on is in line with what we're marketing to them. So sometimes our marketing team, they're throwing all these amazing things at our customers and sign up for this and sign up for that. They're not then signing up and then seeing that experience on the platform. So first it was making sure we were aligned with what the marketing team were communicating and making sure that we did actually contextualize marketing. So if we're marketing a piece of Anthony Joshua content, when they land on a platform, they should be seeing a piece of Anthony Joshua content. If they've converted from seeing a piece of football content, when they land on the platform, they should be seeing a piece of football content, not NFL. So that contextualized, making sure we're doing contextualized landing pages and contextualized push notifications and emails. And on the actual product side of things is one of the features that we introduced, which was we tried to be as frictionless as possible, is we ask you 3 questions whilst you're signing up, and we try to implement it as seamlessly into the sign-up experience as possible. So one of those things was, who's your favorite football player? It's just a one click of a button. Do you prefer documentaries, live content, or like actual fighter content? One click of a button, and then we'll ask another question. And that was one of the features that we introduced. We also determine if a customer lands on a piece of content and they drop off within 10 seconds, let's not show them that type of content again. So we try to introduce 4 or 5 incremental things. Some of them moved the needle quite a lot, so we leaned into them a little bit more. Some of them damaged our data a little bit. So in the beginning, we introduced 5 questions. People were just dropping off. So we pulled that back and tried to make things a little bit more cohesive in the sign-up journey. There was a lot of experimentation. There was a lot of going from different angles. But yeah, it was how can we personalize an experience for customers without overtly asking them, please tell me exactly what you want. So trying to learn a little bit from them, from their very quick interaction that we have with them. And it did massively help. I think after we kind of introduced this roadmap and started launching features, after like the 3rd or 4th feature that we introduced, we saw that drop-off reduced by 25%, which was massive for us. That means that instead of losing customers in a week, those customers are staying for an extra 6 months or so. Yeah, and it's just continuously iterating on that. But yeah, trying to personalize the experience without adding too much friction.
We've got one more question, and then that'll be the end.
Thank you very much. So my question is actually around like prioritization, right? Because I know like that's something like a lot of product managers get to struggle with a lot. So what would you say would be like the most effective strategies that you've used, and in terms of handling value, profit, in terms of like the features? How would you say, what strategies would you say are the most effective?
I think before I used to look at prioritization as completely my job. So I used to go and these are all the things that we want to release. I'm going to just go and get all the data. I'm going to determine which ones are going to reach more customers, which ones are going to be quicker to market, which ones are going to have the bigger impact. But I very quickly realized, not quickly actually, because I've made a lot of mistakes with that, I realized that my stakeholders should be a huge part of that prioritization process. What are the partnership team that are trying to get us integrations with other partners? What's their priority? Because I also need to think about that, because I wouldn't, as a product manager, be thinking about that. What are the customer service team? What are the pain points they've got? Because they should be contributing to, they should be helping me discover the impact of particular features. The UX team, where do they feel like there are frictions in the product that are causing drop-off or lack of engagement? So I think it's twofold. It's kind of me making sure I'm always engaging my stakeholders, and then not for them to dictate, but for me to make sure I've got insight from them. So I understand everybody's needs across the business, because they have, like I said before, around the CRM thing, they know more about that space than me. And then doing those kind of traditional methodologies like RICE frameworks, where I'm measuring out of all of these 5 features, which ones, is there a timeline as well? I think that comes into it a lot, particularly in a business like DAZN, where we're kind of, we don't necessarily work in quarters, we work in sports seasons. So we do have really tight deadlines. We don't have the luxury of like, this quarter we want to achieve this. No, August 1st, NFL starts, we need to have this in place. So what can we deliver? What value can we deliver in that time? How many customers do we want to reach with that value? What's the monetary value on that, not just the customer's experience? So yeah, like I said, using those frameworks like RICE, Moscow to kind of do the prioritization side of things, but also engaging my stakeholders to understand their prioritization side of things as well, which I think sometimes we forget to do.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Millie. Thank you so much. testing. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. So we've got our next session, which is the panel discussion. We're going to have to set up seats. So we're just going to play music for like a few minutes so we can set up the seats for our speakers to come on the stage for the panel discussion. I will be setting the stage for that. So I'm going to be the moderator for this session. In this session, we will be speaking about winning strategies for PM case study interviews. So all of the tips and the tricks that you need to ace your PM interviews, you will hear from our lovely speakers today. How we're going to go, we're going to spend about 20 minutes, so we're going to improvise now. We're going to spend about 20 minutes asking them some questions. And then we will use a 10 minutes time to have a quick practical interview. So we're going to pick someone from the audience. Is anybody afraid? I'm shaking. We're going to pick someone from the audience to do like a quick, maybe 5-10 minutes practical interview. And then if there is any question that anybody has after that, we're going to obviously ask. So if you have maybe any burning question that you've probably been asked in an interview before, and you feel like that was the question that made you not get the job, feel free to ask the speakers and they will be able to answer your question. So if I can welcome our speakers today. So can I welcome Lucas Lovell to the stage? Yeah, just have to sort of jump. Amazing. Can I also welcome Funtor to the stage? Is Funtor right? Yes. It's okay. Can I? Yes. Sorry, there's no stairs. Yeah, that's fine. No problem. Can I get Toby Aldu to the stage? And we have Toyosi come to the stage as well. Amazing. So, like I said, I will be asking them a couple of questions. So it's going to be an interactive session. And we'll be first learning about them because, again, you just have people here. You need to know who they are. We'll learn about them, and then I'll be asking a couple of interactive questions about interviews and case studies. And then we'll pick someone from the stage. Our panelists are going to ask you a question. You will answer the best way you can, and they'll give you like some tips or some ways that they felt that you should have answered it better, if at all. And then we'll get some questions from the audience. Is that okay? Amazing. Can we get like an extra microphone, please? Thank you. Do we have an extra one? Thank you. Amazing. Okay, so we'll start with Lucas. Lucas, could you please quickly introduce yourself to us, what you do, who you are, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Great. Hello, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. So my name's Lucas. I actually work with Nikki, which is very cool, at Paddle. I lead the product team at Paddle. I'm director of product. I've been in the company for about 3.5 years. As you can tell, I have an accent. I'm originally from Australia, long way away from here. I've been working in tech for about 9 or 10 years now. I originally was a founder of a startup that was launched in Australia that I relocated to Paris, of all places in France, and grew a company in Paris over 4 or 5 years before moving over to London, where I joined the amazing team at Paddle and am now there as director of product. So yeah, that's me, and looking forward to sharing some insights with all of you today.
Thank you, Lucas. Hey, Funto.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Funto Behin. I'm the founder of Product Manager Africa Community, also a product person. I've worked in several product organizations, leading product teams, and also trying to drive and build solutions. I've worked with Conga, Venture Garden Group, eHealth, ASOS, Futureland, Spotify. Yeah, I'm glad to be here, and I hope we can learn one or two things today. So thank you for having me, and lovely to meet everyone.
Thank you, Funto. Hi, Toby. Thank you. Hi, Teresi.
Hello, everyone. I'm Toyosi. I think you found out a little bit about how I went into product. All of my tech career has been in Tesco, it's in retail, but I have also done within Tesco, done stores, I've done finance, I've done payment, I've done PCI-DSS, I've done security, to many different things within the technology space in one organization. So yeah, not quite a retail expert because you keep learning things and customers keep changing their voice and their demands. Yeah, it's just happy to be here with you all today.
Nice. Lovely to see you guys here, and I hope that we can learn a bit of too. We found out that it's not everybody that aced their first interview or got the job in the first interview, so we'll definitely need some tips from here. So we are talking about winning strategies for case study interviews, right? But I also understand that it's not all companies that actually do case study interviews. So I'm not too sure. Is there anybody's company here that does case study interviews? Or that actually does? We do. I didn't do case study when I was very lucky. I didn't do case study. Yeah, but I'm just joking. Yeah, but okay. So maybe most of the case study questions, I will direct them to you, Lucas, but I'll now improvise. Since we know that it's not all companies that do case study, we'll probably just talk more around like general interviews and the types of interviews that we've probably seen in the different companies. But I think the main thing we want to get out here is how can people actually prepare themselves ahead of their PM interview, and how can they ace the interview, right? Everyone wants to understand what's the trick or the tip or the strategy they can use to ace their interview when they go for a PM interview. So, Lucas, I might ask you, why did Paddle decide to use case study interviews for hiring as a product manager role?
Yeah, great question. I'd start off by saying I think like the concept of a case study interview is pretty broad. I think lots of companies do a case study type of interview quite differently. At Paddle, it's something that we've introduced more recently, and we do it for certain roles, but we don't do it for all roles. The primary reason why we do case studies is because it shows us that you can do the job and not just talk about the job. And I think in an interview process, we don't just want to test the theoretical understanding of the concepts and product management philosophies and ways of working, but we want to actually make sure and be confident that you can bridge and take that theory and apply it in practice. Because for me as a product leader, I'm much more interested, or much less interested, in your articulation of theories and frameworks than I am in your ability to actually use them in day-to-day product management. And I think typically what I see for people who are relatively early in their careers is they probably overweight on learning the frameworks and the ways of working and reading Medium articles and understanding how to articulate product management philosophies, and spend less time actually in the pragmatic reality of applying those things day to day. So what we really look for in a successful case study interview is how can you sort of operate pragmatically and take all those theories and actually apply them in some sort of scenario, be that something you're presenting back to us or be that a situational exercise that we're putting you in. Yes. So for me, it's really about testing the practical and not just the theoretical.
Totally agree. I think the
the ability to apply yourself is what matters. It's not just learning all of the methodologies, like everything is out there, but how do you apply yourself? And I mean, one of the questions I have, maybe I'll give that to Funto, is when someone is preparing for an interview, whether it's a case study or a role play or anything, like, are there specific resources that you advise people to use? Like, how can I know to be able to prepare myself for, because yes, the first step is you speak to the hiring manager or you speak to the HR, right? But the next step is where it gets you to the next step and then the next step and whatever number of steps they have in the company. So how can someone prepare themselves for the main deal, like showing themselves that I can apply myself as a product manager? What resources or practices would you recommend to people to use to go for any type of interview, whether it's case study or role play or anything?
Okay. So, yes, a lot of companies that I've interviewed with, they do case and real-life scenario situation. And I think one of the things that they're looking for is your critical thinking, your to have a structure when you're speaking. It's really, really important. And in preparation for a product manager case interview, some will give you the case study before, some will not. They'll give you on the spot. If they give you before, you spend some time, you prepare, and I always advise, look for someone who is also experienced to help you to vet what you've done and do dry runs, a lot of it. You can do up to 10, 20. It's tiring, but it's just something you need to do because when you're presenting back, you want to sound natural, right? You don't want to sound like you're just trying to read off a script. So I do that. I record myself, I watch myself, I try to look at where I'm saying, I don't want to do that. I just want to keep talking. So that's one strategy. Always, always, always practice. Another thing you can do, and then for the likes of Google or Facebook, you do not have a case study. So you go in there, they give you something, product sense, or most times product sense or whatever, and they could tell you, okay, design this thing, right? How would you go about designing an education platform for Facebook? So you have to, first of all, try to understand the framework, because this is where the framework comes in. They will send you a format. Practice it. You can then use resources like, there's this resource called Lewis Lean. In there, a lot of product managers, like thousands of product managers worldwide, all over the world, they're on this platform. You find pairs, you practice with them. These frameworks, you practice this over and over again. There are also things like stellar pairs. Then you can go on YouTube. There's Try Exponent as well. That's also another resource that you can use. It's quite pricey, but they have free videos on YouTube. And practice with your friends, practice with your peers. Keep practicing. That's the only way you can hone your craft. And with interviewing, and it's also important that you have to be confident. Confidence speaks a lot. I mean, there's a lot of confidence where you're talking at interviews. You have to carry that, I know this, I can do. Sometimes they could throw you things that would take you off guard, but you just have to regain your composure and just remember, be calm. That's it. Just remain calm. That's also something that you need to practice in a case study interview. You have to be calm at all times. And I think practicing breathing exercises is really good. Meditation is really good. Just be calm, because the person is just a human being like yourself. Always remember that. And I think one of the things that work for me is I tell myself, if this job is mine, I will get it. If it's not mine, I will not get it. Then I'm not meant to be here. And I think if you have that at the back of your mind as well, it will help you to even be more relaxed and be like, you know what, I'm just going to give it my best shot. I'm going to have fun. And you can be lucky, you have a really good interviewer, and you can be unlucky, you have a really shitty interviewer. Mind my language. Or you have it both ways. Yeah. So in both instances, just be prepared. And if it doesn't go well, it's not yours. You learn, and you move on to the next experience. So that's what I'll say.
Thank you, Funto. You pretty much said, I think that was how I felt as well when I was interviewing for Paddle. I was like, if it's mine, it's going to be mine. If it's not, we move on. But yeah, I'm glad that I got paddle. So I'm going to ask you to. People make mistakes, right? And you probably have seen mistakes that people have made in interviews. One of them is what Funto has said about not feeling confident, right? So what common mistakes have you seen candidates make, or did you make, right, when you were preparing or when you were presented at a case study interview or any type of interview we're at? What common mistakes have you seen candidates make, or have you made, or have you heard people make? And how can we avoid those common mistakes?
Very interesting question. A common mistake is trying to deliver case. So, you know, those are what Then we go into the interview. I think you should create that sort of allowance for practicing different types of cases. One that's trying to develop a feature, something that's trying to deal with the regulatory requirements. You should build in that. It's very common. Another common mistake I tend to see is forgetting that a case of people. Like, so when the case of the interviewer starts asking questions, oh, you have any insight into this? You have any insight into this? And then you can quickly sense whether or not the interviewer is collaborating, whether coming from consulting, consulting is very, very much clear. That's the thing that we tend to put up. First thing that I ask you a question. You haven't asked me a thing. You are coming to the question. And I have so much insight to give you. I think the third bit is take the time to structure. So you ask the question, do not copy the question. I have it. Even if it's a question that you think you practice and think and present, I think it's very important to still take the time to practice. Say, okay, I'm going to do these three things. It's going to be easy. It's going to be doing something. Say, okay, I'm going to tackle this one. This is how I'm going to solve it. I think the last thing that was remember to think out loud. Sometimes your best.
Yes.
I remember the interview I was in. This black lady. It was very much product. But it was we are trying to build it up. Because I was thinking about this. And I was thinking about one of the things I said was, can we just buy a company that does that? I think the interviewer picked up on that and expand on that. But yeah, it's companies doing what's out there. And I think they were very interested in that sort of outlook. So don't forget to think out loud.
I love that idea. Like, build versus buy is something that we say a lot in product, right, as a strategy. So I love that you said think outside the box and say it, right? But should I, if I'm scared, should I say, oh my God, I'm scared, what should I do? Like yes. Yeah. Amazing. Trust yourself. Let's see. I have a very good question here. I know you were given the opportunity to learn in Tesco, right? But I want to ask you, what tips do you have for people who are interviewing? How can you clearly and concisely communicate your ideas and solutions? Whether it's even in an interview or even in the job, like, how can I clearly and concisely communicate my ideas and solution in a way that an interviewer or the manager or the hiring person could say, I think this person has potential? Because for you, you were not a product manager or anything, right? But they saw that you could do it. So how do I communicate my ideas in a way that people would say, she has potential, he has potential, and I want to hire them?
Right. I think when you go into interview, I think one of you already mentioned this. The first thing you should remember is you're talking to another human being. The second thing you should remember is that they see your potential, and so you're probably meeting a need that they have as well, which is the vacancy they're looking to fill in. If you remind yourself of that thing, you already have value. You're already bringing something. It's a really great place to start in terms of choosing your mindset. Now, for the questions you asked, whether it's a case study, I think context is always very important. If you're anything like me, if I am in an idea space, I always make an assumption people know where I'm coming from. Nobody knows where you're coming from. So it's always important to set the context. A really brilliant interview technique is to follow the STAR structure. So where it is you think about your situation, that's given the context to the person so they can follow you. You think about the task that it is that you were set out to, you were given. And then you want to then go to your approach. How did you approach the situation? If I go back to the talk we listened to earlier on, there's a framework with product management. She started out to say, what is the why? This is where you want to start to think about, okay, why? What is the real problem I'm trying to solve here? How can you get that information? You want to research. You want to understand the customer. You want to understand your users. You want to understand the market. Also, make sure any hypotheses you are making, right? Because you don't have time to necessarily get all the data. So you may make some assumptions, state your assumptions. So you might think about, that's your approach. How am I approaching this problem? Or how did I approach the problem? And then you want to share the results that you had. I think for me, it's always been a structure I've been able to rely on. And while I've been in Tesco, I've done a lot of interviews. Some of my toughest interviews are in Tesco. I mean, me being interviewed, because you get interviewed for everything. By the way, they're some of the toughest interviews. And I've also done external interviews because I got a tip from, funny enough, my manager that said, you should do interviews with external companies so that you can own your craft, see what competitors want and are asking for out there. And I still have my toughest interviews within my own business. And that's just because something that many people look for beyond the what, because you can learn the what, is what you bring. That thing that makes you, that means you bring something more into the team. Because no one else but you can bring that. You need to know what that is, because that would always be your USP, that differentiating factor. Know that's you. Be authentic, be honest. Come into yourself in that interview with your true self. And whatever the outcome, you always get something back. Even if it's just the feedback that you get is a learning for you to develop and know what to do differently next time. That's my go-to.
Thank you. That was amazing. The STAR method. I think almost every interview, whether product management or not, they say do that, right? Because that's one of the best ways to be able to let someone see the journey that you're going through. So thanks for that. I'm going to ask you, Lucas, now. How closely do case study interviews, right, mimic the actual work a product manager does in the company?
How much do they reflect the actual
Yes,
work?
yes.
I think it really depends on the type of case study interview. At Paddle, we have a couple. So for product management roles or product leadership roles that require a deep level of expertise, we'll typically do a case study that they'll undertake before they join the interview, because we want to see a real level of depth of understanding. And for more generalist product management roles, I think this is one that you've done, Nikki, we do a more practical exercise where it's a case study of sorts. It's not really a case study, but it's a practical exercise where we put you in a situation that is pretty reflective of the day-to-day at Paddle, and it's very impromptu, and most people either sink or swim in that scenario. Nikki swam wonderfully. So I think in both of those scenarios, they're a little bit different. I think the practical one is probably a better reflection of the sort of problems that you're going to be solving day to day, and the sort of customer interactions that you might be having. The case study interview that precedes the interview is likely less reflective of the operational sort of duties that come with the job, and more reflective of the domain understanding that we require for a certain role. Yeah. But we really like practical exercise, especially for our standard product management roles, because it is quite an accurate reflection of what our expectations of you are in the day-to-day, albeit condensed into an interview format, right?
Yeah.
And albeit you're coming from a place where you don't have all the context, you haven't lived and breathed paddle for 3.5 years like I have. That's fine. We acknowledge that. We're not expecting the same level that we would expect from a product manager who's already at paddle and working in paddle. But we do expect you to be able to handle yourself in that situation, take those theories, think like a product manager. We're really testing your thinking and your communication and your ability to absorb information, clarify, condense, diverge, converge, etc. in an interview setting. So I think that they're somewhat reflective of the day-to-day, but not entirely reflective of the day-to-day. I think it's impossible to perfectly reflect the day-to-day in an hour-long interview, but the idea is that it does also give you a flavour for the sorts of problems that we solve at Paddle when we do the practical job.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you, Funto, what do you think interviewers are looking for a general, because almost everyone here is trying to transition, right? So they're not going to be looking for like leadership roles, right? So let's talk general now. What do you think, like going off what Lucas was saying, they don't know that you're not in the company. They don't know, you don't have enough information. But what do you think interviewers are looking out for from someone who is trying to apply for a generalist product management role?
Okay. So at that level, I would say it's important to consider the fit into the team. Can you fit into the organization, the culture? Also, your ability to be a critical thinker. It's very important, even if you're coming in at a generalist role, because product management requires a lot of critical thinking. You have to be curious all the time. They also want to see your passion for that product, the role you're interviewing for. Are you passionate about it? Is it something, so your passion you can always show your passion when you're being interviewed, when you have the conversations. It's also something that hiring managers look out for. Also, the way you structure your thinking, how you communicate, because product management requires a lot of communication. How do you communicate in a clear, succinct way so that what you're saying is clear from start to end? You're not rambling, right? That is also important because you have to also communicate with stakeholders who could be non-technical. You have to communicate with your engineers who may not be too business-oriented. And so you have to basically be that communicator who is constantly engaging with customers. You have to familiarize. Is this someone that we also want to spend time with users, talking to them, trying to understand how they're using your product? So these are the kind of things that hiring managers will look out for. And that's why they will do that. A little bit of what he said you did. And then you will also have the culture fit thing as well. Yes. Just trying to gauge did you research on the company? What do you know about them? Do you want to go in there and they ask you, what do you know? Like, I don't know much. Or they ask you, okay, this is one of our values. Or looking at all our values, which one do you most connect with and why? So they can just tell what kind of person you are and what kind of team you can then fit into. And maybe even understand what are your gaps? What are your skill gaps? How can we help you? That's what they're asking. Yeah. If they're saying, what are your skill gaps? So you can tell them your gaps, but at the same time, what are the things they're also doing to bridge those gaps? So always emphasize that as well. You cannot just say, I talk too much. Okay, I talk too much. So how do I talk too much? What am I doing to make myself talk? Just saying.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say, really.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thanks. Oh, yeah, go ahead, please. Yes.
Okay. Do you want to say something regarding that as well? What you think interviewers are looking for, Toyosi? And maybe Lucas as well?
To be honest, authenticity is my main one that I look for, honestly. Interviewers can tell if you are reading off a sheet in this virtual world, to be honest. And it's shocking the number of candidates that you will interview and they're literally reading off of a page. So I would say be yourself and be self-aware. I think you touched on it in terms of what are your skill gaps. It's okay not to know everything, right? I try not to hire someone who's exactly like me. I'm looking for someone that's bringing something I don't have. That's because I also have gaps. So I would say be true to yourself, be honest, and be self-aware.
Thank you. Lucas, do you have something?
Yeah, I think the undertone of any interview process is, do I see myself enjoying working with this person, right? And I think a lot of people forget or shy away from showing their personality in an interview process. And I love seeing people's personality in an interview process. If I walk away from the interview and think, that was awesome, I had a great time for an hour, and I feel like I connected with that person, and I feel like if I was sitting next to them in the office or chatting to them on a Zoom call, I really enjoy their presence, and I feel like there's some character and personality there. That's a big plus. Like, don't underestimate how much of a plus that is.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. We have a guy named Pete who recently joined our product team at Paddle, and he is such a funny person. Like, he is extremely witty and like hilarious. And when he interviewed with us, he lent into that. He brought that to the table, not in a way that sort of depleted his arguments or made him look less. He brought it to the table in a really nice way, lent into it, and he leans into it now as a product manager at Paddle. Like, he always brings humor into the way he crafts narrative around his products. When he's like announcing launches to the rest of the business about his products, he creates gifs and memes because it's his personality, right? It's his character, and his ability to engage us as interviewers and his ability to engage the rest of the business now as a very successful product manager is fundamentally because of his personality. And we all have different components and aspects to our characters and personalities, but the point of that being is, like, I want to see who you are. I want to see your character. I want to see your personality. So don't be afraid to sort of shy away from it. Try not to be too stiff. Be your authentic self. Bring your authentic self to every interaction that you have with an interview panel at work, and that will take you a long, long way, genuinely.
And one thing, no matter what, smile. Just smile.
Yeah.
Just smile. Even if you are forcing, just smile during the interview. Even if the interview looks like you're about to hit your head with something, just smile. And you will see he will also smile or she will smile. So I think that also works. So remember that. That's it.
Yes, thank you. I think that what you said literally is, did I smile, Lucas, in my interview? Do you remember?
You smile, you smile a lot.
I'm just joking, but I think the main thing that everyone has said, and they've all said the same thing, outside of all the technical knowledge that you have, who are you? Like, people want to know who you are. People are doing interviews every day so they can breathe a fake person from afar, right? Outside of the hiring manager, when they see you, people know that you're not real. So literally, please be yourself. The last question before we then go into our practical interview is, and maybe everybody can answer this, because when you get into an interview, you might have prepared a lot, but then there'll be questions that will hit you like, whoa, I can't believe this. How can someone actually bring themselves back when they hit them with a question that probably they didn't prepare for, or it's something that was unexpected? How can I bring myself back to comport myself and run with it, or make sure I'm still successful somehow? Anybody can start. Have the answer.
Okay. I mean, that happens. It's happened to me. And I think for me, it's been, I guess, practice and experience. But what I'll say is, when you get that question, try not to show that you're shocked. Because once you do that, you've set yourself up, right? The person will just keep throwing those things at you. So I think for me, when I hear that, I'm like, You know, I just sigh, but I don't show. Can you give me a moment? Let me think. You have that. Give me a moment. Let me think. And please always have a paper and pen whenever you're doing an interview. You must write. And tell, please, can I gather my thoughts? I need to think about it. Give me 1 minute. And so you quickly, as a PM, please, you always have to think on your feet. So please, just quickly think on your feet and put yourself, I'm like, okay, this is how I want to go about it. And no matter what they throw at you, there's really, really nothing new. I don't know how to say it. Just always weave it around the story you had before. Maybe you want something that you already knew. Just try and fit it in somehow. I don't know how. I mean, that's what I do. And eventually, I'm able to then comfortably and confidently speak. But just be calm. Take that breath. Just be calm. That's the only thing you can do. Because if you panic, you will panic throughout the interview. So that's the advice I have. And just gather your thoughts. And just write. And as you write, you will start to flow. And then speak. But don't pause for 5 minutes and write. That's not what I mean. So as you are pausing, don't spend more than 30 seconds and then say something. Okay, this is how I want to go about it. Pause again. Because you're using that to gather your thoughts even more. Yeah. These are the things I'm going to say. Pause again. So keep pausing. There's no harm in pausing. And ask questions. He talked about it. Ask questions. You can even say, oh, is this what you're saying? You're just trying to gather yourself. Okay, you've just asked this question. You clarify, is this what you mean? You're using it to put yourself together. Yeah. So those are the tricks when you're given that trick question that you were not prepared for.
Thank you. Sorry, we can hear you, I think. Yes. Good.
Absolutely not start to answer. If you're not familiar with the terms of the question, like when you just ask questions, no one will like you ask say, okay, I need practicalism. They ask another question. Mention this, don't get it. It saves you a lot more stress than going completely off tangent. Talking for 2 minutes about something that the interviewer is not asking for. So yeah, I think just don't proceed until I don't think more.
Yeah, think out loud, Toby. I love that. It's like you think out loud a lot.
Hopefully not too much.
Nice. Lucas, Toyosi?
Just add one thing. It's everything they said, absolutely. But one good thing is, and sometimes the question was just not clear. If you think about why you would feel flustered in the instance, in the first place, is the question was not clear. You weren't really prepared for that part of the question. Either way, you want to pause or ask for clarity. So it's okay to ask someone, I'm not sure I understood your question. What do you mean? Give me some more context. That's okay. But please don't do it for every question, because I think there's a balance, right, where it's the interviewer versus actually you're not prepared for this interview. But be comfortable to say, what did you mean? Because no one is really setting out to catch you out. That's never the intention. But what's actually more possible from the interviewer is that they ask a question in a way where it's not very clear, and you can ask, what do you mean? Are you talking about X, Y, Z for context? And then you move on.
Great. Lucas, do you have anything to add?
I think everyone else covered it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Clarifying questions, taking time.
Yeah.
Are all great tips and tricks.
Thank you so much. So we might not have time for a practical interview here. You guys must be happy about that. But I think I wanted to give at least 5 minutes to, if there's anybody that is currently interviewing now, or you've interviewed for a PM role and you didn't get the job, and you feel like there was a question that they asked you and you didn't answer properly, or you think you didn't answer properly, feel free to ask us the question, and one of the panelists will maybe say, I think you should have answered this way, or this is how I would answer it if I was asked, right? So is that clear? Okay, so does anybody have any question interview questions related that they must have been asked, or it's burning, or maybe you've researched that these are the questions that they asked in a PM interview, and you want to wonder how will someone answer that? You got a mic for him?
I'm not sure if it's. Hello, thank you. Thanks for some really insightful some tips. I think something that always comes up at the end of an interview is I'm going to give you space to ask some questions now. What are some of the, I guess this is maybe slightly different, but what are some of the best questions you've been asked by an interview?
A good one, if you haven't already researched it or if it didn't come up, would be to understand the values or the culture within the team or that company that you're going into. Because it's important that you feel that you are going into a place where you would also be comfortable and you feel like you can be yourself. And you want to be aligned with that company as well. I think those are great things. You can also ask for data in terms of, how they manage failure. That's another interesting one to measure and assess what a company could be like in terms of psychological safety. Those are some of the questions I think people are they're not on the nose necessarily, but they should matter to you. Because if you're going to be working there, you want to know that you'll be happy there.
I love it when interviewees ask about our customers. To be honest, I think it shows a lot of engagement and curiosity with the problem space and sort of work that they'll be doing. As someone who has interviewed hundreds of product managers, I know every interview question that is on every Google article that people read beforehand and say, I'm going to ask that question. I've seen them all, and it's really, really easy to pick, genuinely. So my guidance on this would be to do some research on the company, right? Contextualize your understanding of the company, and think about something really interesting that you can ask about the company, about the customers, about the journey of the company, right? That shows that you're engaged and you're curious to learn and understand more.
Yeah.
All the classics, we've heard them many, many times before, and it's typically associated with a little bit of the lack of engagement, right? It typically shows that people just aren't that interested. They've just gone to Google and said great questions to ask an interviewer. They haven't engaged with the company and the opportunity, right? So my advice would be to engage with the company, ask something really interesting about our customers, about the journey, about the problem space, about the industry. Hey, I read this a couple of years ago about your company. How did that project unfold? Right? Where is that now? Et cetera, et cetera. I think going at a company level, at a customer level, is a great way to build something a little bit more authentic with the interviewer.
Yes, I agree with that. I remember when I interviewed with Spotify, and I actually watched the investor video. It was a long one, but I sat down and I watched because I wanted to get in, right? I went in there and I was asking questions based on that video. And my manager she was really impressed, and she kept talking. Even after I joined, she was like, I really liked your questions. They were quite thought-provoking. So he's right. Do a lot of research. Don't just go on ChatGPT or Google and just go reel out, oh, what's your biggest struggle? Oh, blah, blah, blah. But really, really dig deep and really know what they do, and show that interest about, oh, what I saw. How are you guys? So one of my questions. So how do we want to get into the emerging markets? Because I see that that's a really big thing that we're trying to do, blah, blah, blah. And so that got her excited, and we got talking. And that's also something that you want to show your excitement for working through.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, there's someone.
Thank you for the insights. My question is regarding conflict. So, some interviewers will ask, how do you handle conflict within teams, and especially with your teammates and then stakeholders, either be it upline or downline?
Anybody wants to handle conflict here?
I've had lots of conflict. But really, first of all, when it comes to conflict, in my own opinion, what I look for and what I do, both because I've been on both sides of the table, make sure that, first of all, there's this star thing. You have to always use that structure. Don't tell a lot of stories about it. Just go straight and explain, this was the situation, this was what happened, this was what I did to try to, minimize that conflict. And this was the action we took. This is what we did together, because I realized that, okay, this conflict, we have to solve it together. So imagine yourself and your engineering manager that you have to work with every day. You have conflict, and you have to resolve it. You have to go personal. You have to. So when you're talking, when you're telling the story, because they will ask, and when you do have conflicts, try and use that as an example that you can use in your interviews. And so when you go into that interview, also show your vulnerability about how you felt, how it made you feel, and also share how the person felt, because it's a two-way conflict, and how you went about to resolve it amicably. It may not be perfect. You may not even have a perfect relationship, but it to show that you tried, that you're someone that is willing to work with people, because you will meet different people and you will have conflicts all the time. That's just the truth. So I think, that's what and always be authentic. That authenticity also showcases the kind of person you are. You understand that, yes, it's part of work, part of life, but this is how I deal with it, and I keep working on it and trying to improve myself. So that's what I would recommend.
I think you're spot on. I think this is one of a typical line of questions in an interview that are usually designed to test self-awareness. So there are a number of these. There's like, tell me about a time you were in a period of conflict. Tell me about a time where you made a mistake. Tell me about a time where your manager gave you feedback and you didn't like it. Tell me about a time where you gave someone else feedback and they didn't like it. This line of questions, you'll get to that point in an interview, and the interviewer is probably getting to this point where they want to see self-awareness. I think what you said is spot on, right? What they're looking for here is not for you to say, oh, I'm amazing and I solved this brilliant conflict because sales wanted this and marketing wanted this and our risk team wanted this and I managed to do everything perfectly and solve the problem wonderfully. They don't want that. What they want to see is that you're really self-aware, that you have good situational understanding, and that also that you can learn from those situations, right? Because you're going to be in conflict as a product manager quite often, and they want to know that you can handle those situations with a level of self-awareness and that you can grow through those situations. So I think when you get to that line of questions, and there are a lot of different ways of asking that question, I always think I want to see self-awareness here. So a good way to wrap that question up is by saying, from that experience, I learnt X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
Right? And then end on that, because that shows that you're really aware, you're self-aware. Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
If I can quickly touch on that a few more seconds. It's also balancing not overselling, but also not underselling your importance or what you did in that situation. In most cases, maybe you're an analyst at the point in time, so you couldn't say, oh, I made the company do this. No, you didn't. You're an analyst. But also showing that self-awareness to sort of say, okay, I wanted to speak with the VP of product. He worked in a different time zone, and I had to figure out what sort of time of the day he'll have my full attention for me, and then I presented X, Y, and Z idea. Showing that awareness of, this is who I was in this particular role, but I saw this was a solution, and I tried my best to communicate the solution, typically is very helpful. It doesn't really help when you oversell what the outcome was.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So we are past our time now. If you have more questions, maybe you didn't want to ask publicly, feel free to reach out to any of our speakers and they will be happy to answer your questions, correct? All right. I want to say thank you to Lucas, thank you to Funto, thank you to Toby, and thank you to Toriasi for this final session. wearing so many hats as a product manager. Okay, so our next thing on the agenda now is for us to go for a tea break. I know that we've been speaking, we've been getting lots of insights, but we want you guys to go just network with each other and sort of have some tea. And this will run for like 15 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to be playing a video on the program offerings as well, while everyone just goes, have the tea, network around for the next 15 minutes, and we will be back for